both some notes and examples. So the volume of a cone is very similar to a volume of a cylinder. Cone, by definition, has a circular base. So cones do come to a point, not to be as compared to a cylinder. Height is measured vertically inside the cone, perpendicular to the base, just like height always is. Cubic units, it's a volume. Cones hold 1/3 the volume of a cylinder with the same radius and height. We do a fascinating demonstration in class, but unfortunately can't really do it right here. So that means that the formula is very similar to the cylinder. The only addition is the 1/3. That is 1/3 the volume. So if we're looking at this, please note the radius, still the radius. They could give you the diameter, so beware, but it's got to be the radius. And then the height has to be measured inside. That's why this is a dashed line, inside the actual cone. And please note that it is indeed perpendicular. That's how we always measure height, perpendicular. Surface area of a cone. Just like with a cylinder, we had to come up with a net. Surface area for a cone does require a net too, except it's a little bit different. You must know the slant height, not to be confused with the height. The slant height is not the height. The slant height goes up from the outside of the cone, from the base to the top at some angle, however steep the cone is. It's related to the height and radius in that they form a right triangle. You'll see from the picture here in just a sec. You use L. Often you'll see the script L2 used for the slant height. R squared plus h squared equals L squared, R radius, h is the plain old height, goes up through the center, and L would be the slant height. So looking at this L here is this distance right here. Please note that the height has not changed. If you're lucky, they give you the slant height, and then you don't have to calculate it. So let's do a couple of examples of each of these. Volume of cones. So in this first case, they gave you the radius, which is 3, and this is the height. Please note it's perpendicular, so therefore this is just the plain old height. So the volume is 1/3. Don't forget the 1/3. It's kind of important. It's not a cylinder. Pi times the times the radius squared times the height. Now in the end, what does that work out to? Well, a little bit of calculating. So 1/3 pi times 3 squared times 5 is 47.1. I'm just going to go to the nearest 10th inch cubed because it's a volume. Same idea here, except this is not the radius. You probably noticed that. That is the diameter, which means the radius is 5 meters. So the volume would be 1/3 times pi times 5 squared times, well, this is still the height, still perpendicular, 7. So 1/3 times pi times 25, or 5 squared, times 7. Please note that 1/3 is the same as taking 1 divided by 3 in your calculator. So the nearest tenth, we're looking at 183.2, check that, rounding the nearest tenth, 3 meters cubed, because it's a volume. So now a couple of examples of surface area. So in this case, with how this 10 is written, notice there's no dashed line, we have to assume, and it's safe to assume, that that is the slant height. So for the surface area, it's pretty straightforward. It is, well, pi r squared, pi times 7 squared, which is just the area of the circle, which is the base, plus pi times r times L, just like the formula says. R being the radius, L being the slant height. So what do we get? In the end, we get 373.85 or 0.9 inches squared, because it is indeed, so squared, let's make that more like a 2, it would be the surface area. Okay, in the next one, a little bit of calculation. This is still the radius, but this is not the slant height. Don't be fooled. Now, That being said, we can calculate the slant height. Remember, the slant height is this. It goes up the side, so we actually need to find that to find the surface area. Only for the surface area do we need that. But that would mean that this, if you look carefully, you can see a right triangle there. 6 squared plus 8 squared equals L squared, because L is the hypotenuse. I'll save you a little bit of drama, but 36, 6 squared, 64, altogether 100, which means that the slant height is equal to, well, remember you have to take the square root, 10. So that means it is 10 yards. So, run the formula again. The surface area, let's scroll down a little bit here. The surface area would simply be pi times the radius squared for the area of the circle plus pi times the radius times the newfound slant height. So, all told, that ends up being 301.6 yards squared. There we go. And that's it.